What's up, guys? It is September 16th, opening day of the Wisconsin archery season. I'm walking in here. It's about 4 o'clock. Figure if I get settled in by 4:30, we'll be in good shape. But trying to be super quiet. There's a lot of cameras and a lot of deer going by the cameras at all times, but I'm excited to be out here. I've not hunted an opening day of the archery season in a few years. A lot more leaves than I expected on September 16th. The wind is out of the north and then switching to the northeast, which tells you or a good indicator of why I like tonight's chances. It's supposed to get down to the high 40s, and that is the lowest overnight temperature we've had in a while. The biggest bucks are on like a 3 or 4 day cycle on my cameras, and it's been 3 or 4 days, so I'm hoping I might catch that cycle and maybe it can be daylight. I don't have too much further to go, so I'm gonna put my bibs on now. It's been cooling down real nicely. In the last hour of dark, or last hour before dark. So, I don't like being cold either. I just ran into a couple deer on the edge of the corn here. So, they're on their feet right now, some of them. There's a doe, just gotta keep walking. So she runs. You can see a long ways out into that popple thicket. I am taking my sweet time. It's always intense getting set up. Just where to put things, where's the right spot to put things on the tree. Always an adventure. There's acorns dropping in here. Got the brassica plot straight out here, and the brow buck has daylighted right on the corners camera right up here, and I think he's coming from behind me and might be hooking right in front of this stand. So it's a marginal win, but not for anything coming from this way or straight back. Definitely don't like wearing gloves, and especially not early season like this. So little paint on the hands isn't gonna hurt anybody. This is an intense spot. Kind of feel a little more naked than normal, but this is a 20-foot ladder, so I'm up in the air a good ways.
Unfortunately, the sound on my camera wasn't working, so I had this group of 4 deer, 2 does, and 2 fawns come in, and they came in really quick, and they got my wind, and they turned around and went back. You can see that deer running there, and that was the first group of deer I saw. A short time later, this doe came in and worked right by the tree, and she must have been just below my wind, or my wind was going over the top of her, because she did exactly what I wanted her to do. The next group of deer was a doe and 2 fawns, and they came in and they were looking like they were going to go by me and munch on acorns and head out to the field, exactly what I wanted them to do. The doe had halted shortly before this, and she was watching to the north, and a group of deer ran back from the field, and I'm not sure what they spooked from, maybe a coyote or whatever, but they definitely wouldn't have gotten my wind. And anyway, that doe and 2 fawns ended up heading back, as you can see them now. And that group of deer to the north, there was a nice young buck with them. A short time later, this doe came in, and this doe did exactly what I wanted the deer to do. I figured they were coming down the road or from across the road, and then they would hook in front of the stand to the north of me, so they would be upwind and then go out to the field. And this was probably the biggest doe that I saw come by the stand on the evening, so that was a good sign. I had my hopes up at this point. This doe is about 50 yards to the north of me, so we're all good here, upwind. And I had heard some racket. You know, it's really loud in the woods at this time of year. The bucks are kind of doing their hierarchy thing. And so I pan back here, and here comes this nice buck. And this is a deer that I know from last year. He doesn't have much for a rack, but he is definitely a nice looking deer. He's one of those Frank type deer. He's never going to score very high, but definitely a nice looking buck. When I say Frank type deer, I'm referencing the deer that I killed last year on December 16th. Frank was a 5.5-year-old buck. And, you know, I never even scored him, but he probably scored between 120 and 130 as a 5.5-year-old buck. And there's a lot of deer around like that, and they sure are fun deer to hunt and harvest.
We're getting pretty close to the end here. It's been a pretty good night. The wind was swirling around, and I had that first group of does come out to the south of me here when the wind was stronger, and they turned around and went back. There were 4 of them. And then a little while later, 3 of them came right by. 1 doe came right underneath the tree, big doe, and a fawn came right in. And then there were some deer to the north that spooked back in. There was 4 of them, and there was a nice young buck in that group. And that doe and fawn ended up going back too. They never spooked from that group of deer to the north running back, but they just ended up going back. And then a little while later, another, probably the biggest doe I saw tonight, came right in front of the tree right here. So I'm like, okay, this is good. That's exactly what I want them to do. And then I could hear, I thought I could hear what sounded like a buck a little bit south of the road coming my way. And he must have looped around, because then a doe came out to the north. And then that pretty nice buck, I think he's a 4.5-year-old deer. But, I mean, his rack wouldn't say it, but I know him from last year. And he's just, he's one of those Frank type deer. But he's pretty nice. Alright, dudes, it is the end of legal time. I don't even know if you can see me, but I'd say that's a pretty good night. I'm glad I stuck to my guns and came here. The wind was swirling a little bit early. That buck that came out was the last deer I saw. So try and get out of here before something bigger strolls along. But I think I saw about 16, 17 deer. Definitely heard more than that. So pretty awesome night. I'm sure that some people killed some good bucks tonight, because the deer were moving pretty good by the stand here and on my cameras. So it was a good night. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you soon. I'm really glad I came, because I learned quite a bit tonight.